open relationships. When a sexual relationship first starts, our brains are flooded with neurochemicals that foster feelings of excitement, obsession, and impulsivity. Oxytocin and dopamine are frequently influential at this stage. When these chemicals are raging, our brains do nothing but think about sex. Sex with our new lover is extremely powerful as these chemicals enhance our physical reactivity. When you're in a relationship, these chemical neurotransmitters begin to wane, and we no longer have that same type of excitement about our lovers. And therefore, that's one of the reasons I think that infidelity is on the rise. And maybe open relationships are something that we should embrace, discuss, and take a look at. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tingle Talk, where we have frank and open discussions about sexuality as it pertains to us as individuals, us collectively, political issues, health aspects, and of course, the sacred enlightenment of it. This evening, we have a special topic. I have a panel with me this evening. Our topic is open relationships. And a little later on in the show, we will have a personal chef who will show you how to do an aphrodisiac beverage. So this evening, let me introduce you to my guest. I have Illani Buie and Daka, Diego.
Thank you. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
So good to be on your show.
Thank you
sorry,
for-
Tingle Talk on YouTube. Here we are.
Thank you for coming and being guest on my show. So as you know, our topic today is open relationships. And I want to start with talking about dramatic differences between the genders in terms of sexual desire. Men desire more sex and more sexual partners than women. In one study, researchers found that in ideal situations with no fears or problems, men desired almost 13 partners per year, whereas women desired 5 partners. Simply put, men desire more sexual partners. And when you think about that, 50% of marriages end in divorces, and 40% of those men say that infidelity is the cause, and 25% of the women in those relationships say the same. So we're going to explore open relationships and see whether or not that we should change the paradigm on how we look at relationships in general. So would any of you like to chime in on that?
Well, thank you for bringing up the topic, M. Shari. I think it's a valid topic, especially here in San Francisco, the West Coast. We're I think, a progressive city, lots of different flavors of relationship going on. I went ahead and I did my homework, and I pulled out Opening Up, a book by Tristan Taormino. Chapter 12 is the chapter on jealousy and other intense feelings. And I really think that these are the things that kind of come up when the topic of open relationships even begins to rear its head. I was watching Jerry Springer today, and the whole culture of the nation, I think, is wrapped around monogamy. Like that's the dominant paradigm. They don't even consider alternate paradigms. But here we are, it's happening, and we have to face it. So this is what happens, jealousy and intense feelings. Certainly, you'll see a lot of those things on that show, but they're not handled in a very mature way. So Tristan Taormino likes to say that jealousy is an umbrella term that you can unpack into lots of different things. So what could jealousy be? It could be a fear of abandonment, could be resentment, envy, competitiveness, insecurity, inadequacy, possessiveness, feeling unloved, feeling left out. Gosh, that's a mouthful. And each of those is like a whole 10-minute show just by itself. So we need to unpack it, and then the next part of that is to use something like nonviolent communication or compassionate communication, go through the steps of that to relate to your partner. And that's I think, when you start to go on the road there.
Yeah, I think we should take a look at it. Also, in a historic background,
God's calling.
polygamy is very common and widely practiced in African cultures. It's called fraternal Polyandry is where one woman is married to brothers and is practiced among nomadic African tribes, people in Tibet and parts of China. And if you also look, for those of you who are biblically inclined, if you look in the Old Testament, Exodus 21:10 states that multiple marriages are not to diminish the status of the first wife. And in Deuteronomy 17:17 states that a king shall not have too many wives. And in fact, Isaac had 2 wives. Jacob had 2 wives. And of course, we all know that King Solomon had many wives. So the Bible doesn't put down polygamy or polyamorous relationship. It establishes guidelines and how you should conduct yourself in a relationship like that. And I also think that as those who are interested in that relationship, should have certain guidelines in which how you conduct yourself in those type of relationships. So,
Amen.
Illani?
I can appreciate both of your positions. Thank you very much, but I myself am someone who truly appreciates monogamy, appreciates the love and devotion from a male and a female as a union, as I was raised to believe that that was the way it should be. No, I haven't done any research or homework because I was raised that way. So, you know, this is something that's innate for me.
Right.
And I could be an advocate, you know, today for women and men who just appreciate having a committed relationship where there aren't all of these other ligaments that come up, such as, you know, jealousy or envy or this competitive aspect that comes up when you have to kind of compete with the other people that maybe your mate has become suddenly more attracted to because you've allowed this gate to be open. So, you know, why even be in a relationship? Why even be in a relationship if you want to be open with it? Just be single. You know, just be single, enjoy your single life, protect yourself, protect others, and when you're ready to settle down, then settle down and settle down.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can play with your mate maybe in your bedroom, you know, behind closed doors, with, you know, without the experience of everyone being in your relationship.
I respect your point of view, and that's certainly the normal paradigm that in which we deal in. My concern is that we have so many relationships that end in divorce because of infidelity. And so I'm thinking that maybe we should open up our way of thinking to allow a little flexibility in our relationships with one another, and that we should have, of course, certain guidelines. I'm not saying to be just polyamorous all over the world, you know, and just sleep with everyone, bring too much into your relationship. But I think we should relax the way we think about relationships in general. So.
Amen, 100%. And I think you mentioned infidelity, which is a great topic. Certainly there are many topics that surround this issue. For anybody watching this, you're at home, you might be already in a relationship or single, you're going to eventually get into a relationship. It's a good idea to check in with your partner. And if you can open up acceptance, like you say to your partner, I will accept whatever you say when I ask you this question. And then you breach the discussion. You say, are you interested in anybody else? Do you have any interest in any, you know, interesting activities? Are you interested in any of my friends, your friends? Like, what is in your heart? Like, people always talk about truth and honesty. But I really think in order to get to truth and honesty in your partner, you first have to have acceptance. You have to accept your partner 100% who they are, how they're feeling in their world, in their mind.
Right.
And you bring that out. Now, if two people want to be monogamous with each other, and that's in their heart, fantastic. Absolutely wonderful, brilliant, perfect, awesome. But if one of those people or both of those people has polyamorous feelings, it's time to start an open discussion and at least explore that.
Right.
Because by the time you get to infidelity, it's too late. You didn't have the discussion. You missed the boat. So in order to prevent infidelity in your relationship, you must first have the discussion about what are these feelings that maybe even brings infidelity possible? And is that possible in your mind, in your heart,
Right.
dear partner?
So what I think I hear you saying, Diego, is that we should start with open, honest, frank discussion with our significant other to see where they really stand on the relationship issue.
Absolutely.
Whether or not they are interested in bringing other third-party partners into the relationship or not.
Absolutely. And in order to do that, all of us have to have acceptance in our heart. Anything our partner says is okay. Our partner is never wrong. They are never blamed. And there's a space. Maybe like for the next 10 minutes, whatever you say, I will forgive you.
Right.
You know, or I will not
Hold that
take it against
them.
you. Exactly. And I don't think a lot of people really practice that.
Yeah, I hear what both of you are saying, but to say that your partner is never wrong, and I'm just going to accept whatever you do, that would be hard for me. You know, that would be
fair.
hard for me.
And that's part of the
because-
discussion. Because you put it on the, that's what people do in negotiation tables. They put it on the table and you say, well, you know, this part, not okay. And then the first person can say, well, I'm glad you told me that. Well, maybe I don't need that. Maybe that was just a fantasy that I never ever have to do in real life. And then you could take a deep breath and say, okay, good. I'm glad we put that aside. Or they might say, you know, this is important to me. Let's talk some more about it.
I can appreciate the communication because that allows for, from the beginning, that you can lay your ground lines, your ground rules. So that's wonderful, but still, you're saying that infidelity comes from the fact that you don't have this acceptance. So what if I just accept certain aspects of it, and this is the way that I would like it to be? So you're saying, well, if I don't accept these aspects that he wants, I'm just accepting these portions that I want.
I got you.
Now we
I
have
should,
an
I should clarify
infidelity
that.
issue.
That's good. I should clarify that. There's a difference between acceptance of the 10 minutes and acceptance of the life plan. So, you know, you can put a life plan forward, and it's like in Japan, when people go to Japanese culture, they always say hi all the time, which means yes. And a businessman could go to Japan, and they're always saying hi all the time. And he thought, oh, they signed the deal. I got the deal. They didn't get the deal. All they were saying was, yes, I understand. Yes, I heard what you said. They didn't say yes to buying 1,000 units. So there's a difference. So I should clarify that there's a difference in acceptance between, yes, I see what's in your heart, and no, that's not going to happen. Absolutely. But then that's, you know, that needs to be said. Absolutely.
You know, I'm all for saying it in the beginning. I'm definitely all for that. You know, that just gives everyone an understanding of where it is we're going. But ultimately, a relationship should be something loving between two people that is respected and cherished. And if you're going to be in a relationship, then that's what you're in. You know, I mean, otherwise, then why even call it an open relationship? You're just out there with everyone else. You know, I mean, you may as well consider yourself single because you're opening yourself up to disease, to pregnancy, to, you know, all of these other aspects that can damage a loving relationship, you know, that's already been established. So it's like, just go play. Just go play. Really? Just go
Absolutely
play?
not. Absolutely not. The funny thing about polyamory
You know?
is you start to have nuances and much more guidelines. When things are vanilla, the rules are crazy simple. But when you start to enter polyamory, you have more rules, more discussions, more challenging discussions, more emotional discussions, and more nuances of what's okay and what's not okay. So that is definitely part of it.
And it's something about those rules. It's something about those rules when you lay those rules down that somehow somebody breaks them because now they know that there's a taboo. There's a line that you've just drawn. And it's saying, okay, you can't do this. And then all of a sudden, in the heat of something, that thing gets done.
Well, I hope not. I hope not. I hope the point of rules is to keep them. They're called agreements also.
Well, even in monogamous relationships, the rules are broken all the time, or else we wouldn't have 50% of marriages ending in a divorce and 40% of those because of infidelity issues. So I'm a proponent of crafting a relationship according to the people who are in that relationship. And I also believe that the core, if you're going to allow extra people in your relationship, the core relationship has to be solid. You know,
Amen.
or
100%.
else you're setting yourself up for catastrophe in that relationship.
Amen.
Who's to say that it can't be solid monogamously? Who's to say that you can't lay it down, talk about it, have your communication, your rules, your agreements, your guidelines, and it just be fabulous because that's what it is.
It absolutely
It
could
can
be.
absolutely be that. But I'm saying monogamy is not for everyone. And because we have an option, that the option is there, we shouldn't frown upon it. We should actually explore that option and set in some guidelines on how to work within those guidelines in a relationship so that everyone in that relationship is happy and there is no sneaking around behind your significant other's back. That they know that you have these desires to go outside of the marriage or to bring someone in to the relationship and make them part of the unit. Is what I'm saying.
So if you take it to another level, just say you just take it up one notch and say you're, okay, so I'm not just monogamous with my mate. I understand that he likes a little variety every now and then. Does that make you open? I don't see how that makes you an open relationship. Maybe you just kind of, have a wonderful moment or experience with your mate or allow him to have that, but that doesn't declare him free to free every willy in,
Open up your fantasy.
No,
Are you saying open up your fantasy life a little more?
Well, you should.
Having more
It's healthy.
erotic playtime with your significant other.
I think that could be healthy if you recognize from the beginning that your mate has, you're in this acceptance place, this place where you're saying, okay, I understand you like this certain type of variety, fine, no problem, but does that mean that every door becomes open and every situation becomes open? And that's the part that really gets people, just
Of
kind
course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. You define your rules and your guidelines. So perhaps, you define a sandbox, like only in the bedroom, only with people we both agree on, and only these activities and only with protection, or whatever your rules are. Would that
So you think
getting
you're
there?
gonna make this just real easy, huh? You just would make it real easy for me.
Well, it's,
to digest.
It's a line. It's not complete. It's not complete freedom. It's not complete freedom. You set your rules that both people agree upon. I'm going to go ahead and recommend some resources for people out there. Some good friends of mine who've been doing this work. One of them is Paget and Philippe. He's over at clubexoticapresents.com. Another is Reed Mihalko, readaboutsex.com, R-I-E-D. I hope I spelled that right, R-E-I-D. And another one's Liana Silver with redefiningmonogamy.com. They all have some great websites and places that people can explore that, especially if you're San Francisco and the Bay Area. So there's people who are defining these frontiers and making it okay for everybody else.
I'm an advocate for, choose your relationship. And when you choose that relationship, you choose that person. I really appreciate what you said about cultivating the relationship around that person. And when you don't want it. When it doesn't work for you. That's when you exit. It's nice to know ahead of time, that this is what I like and this is what I don't appreciate. Because then you don't have to worry about the infidelities and, diseases and all these unwanted things that make it difficult for people who actually communicate. So that's great,
Right.
but it's just probably not for me.
Right. Well,
Not for everybody,
realize
absolutely.
It's not for everyone. But I find it very interesting that even in our government, they're talking about this. I found an article with Dr. Patrick Fagan, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Family and Community Policy at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under the former President Bush, who was also a psychologist with a doctorate in social policy from the University College in Dublin. He has this to say. He said, "The culture of the traditional family is now in intense competition with a very different culture. The competing culture is polyamorous. As a whole, is stepping away from the traditional monogamy model and accepting polyamorous relationships."
We're doomed.
Oh, come on now. if you look at primates, there's all different sorts of. Some are monogamous, some are polyamorous. Chimpanzees are very polyamorous. Bonobos, in fact, even have a matriarchal society where the females are in charge. A lot of women would love to hear about that and study that more. So if we trace our roots back, even back to our ancient species, our primates, our innate roots, our hormones, our genes, it's anybody's guess.
Right.
History, as you've pointed out, has gone through phases of polyamory and binary monogamous units, and now we're back in this mix again.
Exactly.
I think
Trying to
it's
redefine relationships again. Right.
exactly, and
Right.
that's to exactly what I was thinking, because it's a socialization. Social media networking, music videos, songs. I've had to turn the radio off
Right.
just because the influence. So, when you make it so that it's tangible and it's accessible and hey, everyone's doing it,
Right.
so then it's like, okay, so why don't we just do it too? Because their relationship seems to be working,
Right.
and that's what
Right.
they're doing. So, maybe it's the leaders. It's those people who we're iconing and looking at, and it's saying, okay, now we have this dynamic of competition, when...
Oh, it's definitely in the mass consciousness. I didn't mean to cut you off. But when you look at the ratio of men to women outnumber the men. So what are women who want to be in a significant relationship, what are they to do if they're not for same-sex relationships? Just where do they go? Do they man share? Do they become a part of a polyamorous relationship?
Are you asking me?
That's a question. That's a question that needs to be answered. We need to sort that out.
Once again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. You find your man. If you like him, you talk to him. You say, what kind of man are you? Are you a monogamous type of man, or are you a polyamorous type of man? And hopefully when you create that space and let him be honest and feel free, feel no pressure to answer either way, but to answer really what's in his heart, then you'll get to, I think, answer that question.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's someone for everyone. And, in my vision of open relationship, I'm not prejudiced to any type of relationship. I just know what works for me. And I know how I was raised. I know what I feel in my heart is significant and special, and that's not something that I'm just going to say, okay, just go ahead and just share it with everyone. That's just not how culture or tradition.
But it's not an all or nothing proposition, right? There are shades of gray in between, and you can define these little adventures.
Right,
yeah.
Your shades of gray.
Or for somebody, let's say you're more of a conservative, monogamous type of partner, and you meet a guy who's more polyamorous. He might try to make it fun for you. Say, well, what's your craziest, wildest fantasy? And just take you on that voyage and see where to go from there. Right? So it's not about him anymore.
Now you've changed the dynamic now.
I'm just saying. Those are the possibilities, right? You feel me? I got the audience. Can I get a hint? Thank you. Working the crowd. I do have one more resource for you guys. It's called Marriage Builders, marriagebuilders.com. Because this is just one small aspect of a relationship, bedroom activities. There are many aspects to a relationship. There's family dynamics and household dynamics and financial dynamics and other activities. And just to make this the only part of the relationship, if it's working or not, there's a lot more to it. So check that site out, marriagebuilders.com.
I want to thank the both of you for sharing, and I'd like to open Q&A up for our audience. If anyone has a question they'd like to ask myself or my guest on the panel, please feel free to do so. And we will do that in the next minute or so. We're going to set up a mic.